Do you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
And a good morning, Birds fans. Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You got you guys, Mac and Mac, John McMullen, and Jody McDonald here to hang with you for the next 2 hours as we get that much closer to week number 15, game number 14 for the 12-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking of numbers, today is show number 427. For your buddies here on Birds 365.
I haven't checked in with the number for a while.
I haven't given it out in a number. Took it off the calendar.
Creeping up on the big one, 500. Creeping up.
That will come sometime, depending on how long the Eagles season goes. Hopefully, in a march to the Super Bowl. Johnny Mac, how was walkthrough Wednesday?
It was good. It was productive. A lot of good stuff from players. More of the locker room. Got to talk to Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Jordan Mailata, a little Lane Johnson. So good, productive day.
Well, I want to ask you about one in particular, and then I do want to hear from all those guys. Jalen Hurts, you mentioned the quarterback.
And Jalen, spoke to Jalen. Yeah.
In the MVP conversation, on top of the MVP pile, depending on how you look at a lot of different ways, you can do just that. He was asked about the supposed disrespect by Michael Parsons.
Such disrespect. Such blatant disrespect.
Disrespect. You and I are not as vexed or worked up about it as some Eagle fans seem to be, or members of the media here in town. Jalen Hurts was out of his mind crazy about it, wasn't he? His response was,
I think 5 words. Bears. Yeah, we're focused on the Bears. I think it was, yeah.
So for all of those who thought that this was like an offense of the highest nature, the guy who was supposedly offended couldn't bother to even respond, that he is kind of staying focused on the task at hand, which is winning this week against Chicago.
Yeah, I think it's ironic. I was telling Tone on our Football 24/7 yesterday. I think, Micah probably pissed off the Cowboy fans too, because he talks so glowingly about the Eagles. I think the whole thing is comical. I really do at this point. I watched it again. I said, all right, what am I missing? So I went back and I watched it again. No, I'm not missing anything. It's ludicrous. It's nothing. He, as I said, the people in Dallas are probably upset at him for speaking so glowingly about the Eagles, as he should, by the way. Jordan Mailata probably gave the better answer, at least for people that wanted it. He went the same direction as Jalen. We're focused on the Bears, but he did say Micah should focus on who he's playing, and he said, I don't know who the fuck they're playing, but he should focus on that. Jordan's funny.
They're kind of playing Dougie P and the Jags this week, which I think could be an interesting game. The same way I think the Bears.
They're better than Houston. I'll say that.
right,
Jacksonville.
this past week. And I saw someone write an interesting take on this, and it rang true to me because you know that I made a wager previous this year that Von Miller, whose podcast Michael Parsons made the comment on, has got a future as a member of the media because he kind of set Michael Parsons up for that. What he was saying led to Michael Parsons saying what he said, which ticked everybody off. I think that it was more than a Jalen Hurts thing. It was a quarterback thing. I told you 10 weeks ago, whenever it was, like 3 weeks into the season, somewhere thereabouts, I was checking out the odds for the MVP. And Micah Parsons was on the list. And he'd gotten off to this great start, gotten a bunch of sacks. I said, 500 to 1? What the hell? Let me throw $500 on Micah Parsons just in case he has this unbelievable season and the Cowboys are this good and they somehow thwart the Eagles. At least I'll score $2,500 for $5. So let me just kind of cover my backside here. And I did. I threw $5 on Micah Parsons as the MVP of the NBA, of the NFL at 500 to 1. And I think Micah Parsons thinks of himself as the MVP. Because there are betting markets where you can bet on him. Everybody else is a quarterback. I think it was more a quarterback thing. If you'd asked them about Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Tua Tagovailoa, I guarantee you would have said something similar to what he said about Jalen Hurts. It's a team game. It's a quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's
teammates.
I think in general there's a frustration with positional players that they don't get the credit that quarterbacks get. And they don't. And, too many people boil it down to quarterback versus quarterback. And you'll hear it all the time. Well, you're not beating Peyton Manning. You're not beating Tom Brady. Well, maybe not, but maybe back in the day, Miami could have a big week and beat Indianapolis or your Jets could have a big week and beat New England. It's not quarterback versus quarterback. So there's definitely some of that amongst positional players. Now it's generally geared outward. You love your own quarterback, especially when he's playing at an MVP level, like Jalen Hurts is. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a lot of good players, man. A lot of good players. And that's not an insult to Jalen Hurts. I don't know why people think that's an insult to Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
It's not like Jalen Hurts is going to be upset if you tell him he's got a lot of good players. In fact, he loves it. He'd rather talk about them than himself. It's bizarre to me. The ironic thing is if Micah said, oh, Jalen Hurts is carrying that team, people would have been pissed off too.
Right.
They would have said, what about Lane Johnson? What about
A.J. Brown and the defense? Is he not noticing how good our defense is? You answer the question. Someone can, in their own mind, spin it any way they want to say that it's disrespectful.
And that's what I said yesterday. That's the problem. If I were Mike McCarthy, and he can't, these are grown men, but if I would try to steer guys away from this stuff, because I said it yesterday on the show. You can't control other people's perceptions. And you're certainly, when it's Cowboys versus Eagles, you're certainly not going to get positive feedback for any. As I said, if he went the other direction and gave Jalen all the credit, they would have been angry about the disrespect to Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson shut Micah Parsons down. That's where you would have been, Jody. That's where you would have been. And that's why I think Jalen's way and Jordan's way yesterday about, we're focused on the Bears. We essentially don't give a you-know-what. That's the way to go. Absolutely. Because you can't control other people's perceptions.
And the perception should be that they're the best team in the National Football League. Jalen Hurts is right now the leader for the MVP. And there's a comma in there, not a period, just a comma. And the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. And the reason why the Eagles are 12-1, even more so than the MVP performance that Jalen Hurts is giving, is because the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. We talked about this a lot prior to the season. And funny, most times it was in respect to the Dallas Cowboys. That if you looked at the Cowboys and the Eagles, player 1 through 44, 45-man roster on game day, Johnny Mac?
46 might be, they changed it. 47.
47. Okay.
47.
So 1 through 46, we thought the Eagles were better than the Cowboys. We thought the Eagles had a better roster. But that 47th spot, you had a Dak Prescott who had accumulated a career more so than Jalen Hurts at this point, that might be a place where before the season started, you said, all right, the Cowboys have an advantage at quarterback. Damn, has that changed in 13 weeks? Unbelievable. But that's what I said. You said even most Eagle fans before the season started had to agree that that was the case. Well, the gap between the Cowboys and the Eagles on the 1 through 46 has grown even more. And then, oh, by the way, 47 is now advantage Philadelphia over Dallas. And we didn't see it coming, but it all started with the Eagles were better 1 through 46.
Oh, yeah.
But they had a better team than the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And you know, I said that pretty early in the process when it became clear that, you know, Dallas is very top heavy. I said, you know, they have some really good players at the top of their roster. Micah Parsons probably being number one. You know, he's not the best defensive player in the game. He's right there with Aaron Donald or Joey Nick Bosa. You can throw Joey. You can throw either pick a Bosa. But yeah, Nick more. Nick's probably going to be defensive player of the year. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are deeper. The Eagles are more well-rounded, and that's shown. And now they have a better quarterback, and I don't know how many people thought that part of the equation was going to happen. They could say it now, but you know, nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this leap coming from Jalen Hurts, and that's not an insult. It's
you're being disrespectful, John. You better be careful.
Well, I know. I get up being disrespectful. I built my platform on hating Jalen Hurts. That's what I got this week. You know, these people. Watch the press conference. You know, Jalen and I have a good relationship because he thinks I'm fair. You know, he's short a lot, but when I ask questions, he'll answer questions. Not he'll give me something. You know, obviously Jalen Hurts isn't ever going to be away from the Nick Saban, but he generally doesn't give me the 2 or 3 word answers that sometimes he shuts people down with. He's got no problem with constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is not hate. Giving your honest opinion on something is not hate. The guy who I'm hating doesn't have a problem with me. There are a lot of fans who have a problem with me because I wouldn't kowtow to, oh, he's great because he's wearing an Eagles jersey, which is basically what they're doing. It doesn't matter who's playing. They're going to say the next guy's great, and hopefully Jalen's here for 10 years and has many Pro Bowls and has multiple Super Bowls. Hopefully that all happens. But whomever the next guy is, Joe, they're going to say he's great right off the bat until they start hating on him.
One of which was Dan Orlovsky from ESPN, who forever was a Carson Wentz apologist, but he has artfully dodged the rest of Carson's career and moved on to Jalen Hurts, who's showing the most improvement ever in the history of a quarterback. And you want to know something? He's right.
I don't. Dan can defend himself, but I think a lot of people in this town thought Carson Wentz was the stinking answer in 2017. I know the Eagles thought it for damn sure.
All right. But at some point you had to move off it, and Orlovsky never did.
That's the point. That's the people you should focus on. The people who can't say they were wrong. I thought Jalen had a ceiling that was much lower than what he's playing now. I freely admit it. I'm wrong. I got no problem admitting I was wrong. The people that still say today that he's not capable of doing this, and you know what drives me crazy is so-and-so can't win a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a damn Super Bowl. Jeff Hostetler won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl to get Eagles fans really upset. Don't give me Lamar Jackson can't win a Super Bowl. Don't give me Jalen Hurts can't win a Super Bowl because they're dual threat quarterbacks, or even Justin Fields down the road. You know, as more of these guys come into the NFL and everybody's looking for them, right? Then the math simply changes. And you're going to get to a point where there's 25 dual threat quarterbacks and there's 7 pocket quarterbacks. And guess what? Then the pocket quarterbacks are in trouble just from a math standpoint. So, you know, that bothers me as well. It's a team game. It's a team game. And that goes back to our original point with Micah Parsons, which is what he's trying to say. It's a team game. It's a team game, and they have a great team, which includes the quarterback.
Agreed. Yeah, we've talked plenty about Micah Parsons, and I'll get John Stolness's take of Bleeding Green Nation. He's going to join us coming up in a couple of minutes. But one quickie before we get to John. Yesterday, you mentioned Dallas Goedert back in the locker room, out there on the practice field. We knew it was happening. Eagles activated his 21-day practice window. We expect him to be activated for the game. We know how good Goddard is. We know the Eagle offense can only get better with the addition of him. Or is there any chance that I think of it more of an NBA sake than it does an NFL sake, that re-adding a guy onto a roster, trying to incorporate into what you're doing alike, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes getting back into the flow. Any worry about that with Goddard being reinserted into the Eagle lineup this week?
No, I mean, there's always, you know, maybe a little bit of rust, but same with Avonte Maddox this week, you know. No, I mean, he's too talented. You put him in there and you play through the rust, and they'll figure it out pretty quickly. I mean, you know, the speed of the game is real. You can't replicate it, certainly in walkthroughs and practice. And when you're off for a month, there might be a little adjustment period, but, you know, they're playing the Bears. They'll get over it quickly, and he'll be a big part of the offense. And I expect him to be activated Saturday. Same thing as last week with Avonte, and he'll play his typical workload. And, you know, that's the way it should work. He's cleared. He's one of your best players. You put him on the field. They're
playing the Bears. That was disrespectful, John.
That's correct.
That was just
I'm being disrespectful.
Disrespectful.
I am being disrespectful for the Bears. They are an awful football team who doesn't seem to have a plan. That's the worst part of it. They don't seem to have a plan. They have a really talented young quarterback. And, you know, I've been talking about this, Jody, since the start of the season. Forget about the talent they put around him. I mean, that's egregious. That's one part of it. But if you're rebuilding, you want to buy into the sort of the Sam Hinkie mentality and strip it down and build it back up. All right, I'll pay lip service to that. But then they bring in an offense that doesn't take advantage of what the kid does early in the season. He looks awful. And then they kind of throw it out and say, all right, we got nothing. Just run around like a knucklehead. And by the way, he does it, and he does it effectively. They're not helping him. As opposed to what you see here with Jalen Hurts. You know, the Eagles coaching staff's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, but didn't Nick Sirianni yesterday say Matty Eberflus is a dynamite coach that he grew up in the cult system with? He respected.
Yeah, well, he's also.
So you're showing disrespect to a guy that the head coach showed plenty of respect to yesterday, McMullen.
He's also a defensive coach. You know,
he's the head coach.
No, he don't do it like Nick. He doesn't. You know, see, you know me and CEO coaches. I asked Nick about that yesterday. That's the way to go. The Eagles are the template for the NFL.
That was a question I was gonna ask you later in the show. We'll get to it. But next up, we're gonna get to John Stolness, contributor of Bleeding Green Nation, hopping aboard with us here on Birds 365. So stick around.
post-game show with Seth Joyner,
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn,
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney,
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
and Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Ram starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Thursday edition of Birds 365 as we make our way that much closer to week 15 and a Bears-Eagles showdown. Well, the host of Eye on the Enemy podcast, Eagle podcast, and contributor from Bleeding Green Nation is jumping in with us. John Stolnis, been with us before on Birds 365. Looking forward to talking to him today. Eye on the Enemy podcast. This week, is that the Bears or Micah Parsons?
We're going to focus on the Bears on the podcast this
You're
week.
the only one, John. Well done. Well done.
Well, you know, somebody's got to do it. You need people on that wall every once in a while. I mean, and listen, you saw what you saw with the Cowboys last week, what the Texans did, putting a scare into them. So I don't think there's any way the Eagles lose this game, but, you know, I hope the players aren't looking past the game. That's all.
And they've done a good job, actually. Jalen handled it really well. Jordan probably got people excited. I don't know who the Cowboys play, but they should better focus on them. What did you think of the comments, though, on Micah Parsons before we focus on the Bears? Did you find them disrespectful? Jody and I did not, but I'm interested in people and their views and their perceptions.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily saying Jalen Hurts is a substandard player, or that he isn't having an MVP type season or a great season. I think anytime you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, who's had the kind of success that he's had this year and the kind of improvement that he's shown this year, and you also look at the fact that they added A.J. Brown and that the defense is certainly much better than it was a year ago, I think it's fair to wonder how much of the improvement of Jalen Hurts is pure Jalen and how much is the talent around him. And I think there is a lot to be said for swapping out Jalen Reagor for AJ Brown. I mean, that is a substantial upgrade.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's going to help. But I think you also, if you just look at the throws that Jalen Hurts is making, the improvement in his decision making. I mean, last week against the Giants, some of those Giants blitzes with some of the anticipation throws that he was making, standing in the pocket against free rushers, that's just not something he did last year. And so those are the kinds of improvements that you can see that don't necessarily reflect. They're not necessarily because of the talent around him. But I will say, you play with a lot more confidence when you play with better players, and I think that's fed into Hurts's improvement. And so it's certainly, you can spin it into bulletin board material. I hope Eagles players are doing that, but I don't necessarily think Parsons was trying to take a shot or anything.
Yeah, that's one of the most talked about things in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why it annoys me more than anything else. The Eagles are 12-1. A comment by a player, as good as he is, and he's a legit defensive player of the year candidate. And yes, we know he's in the offing just 9 days away. In the middle of a season where the Eagles are having a historically good year, we're focusing so much attention on something that somebody said that is pretty damn irrelevant that I'm sorry, it bothers me. And maybe I'm a little thin-skinned, but let's move on to the Bears. How many games in a row have they lost? 6 or 7 or somewhere thereabouts?
Yeah.
It's been a while since they figured out a way.
A lot of close games, though. That's the narrative this week from the Eagles. They play a lot of close games. You got to watch them.
When Justin Fields plays, they play close games. And by the way, he wasn't in practice yesterday. He was sick.
No, he was sick. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something to watch for sure. I think with the Bears, you guys said it right before we came on. They don't have an identity. They don't really know what they want to be. They don't have an offensive system in place that plays to Justin Fields' strengths. I mean, they should be doing very similar things to what the Eagles are doing right now. You know, a lot of RPO, a lot of designed runs for Fields, and I mean, they're obviously allowing him to create more with his feet over the last couple of months, and they've been more competitive since then. But you know, the Eagles defense has shut everybody down the last couple of weeks. I don't see how the Bears and Justin Fields move the football unless the Eagles are shooting themselves in the foot, you know, offensively and defensively, giving the Bears offense short fields with turnovers or couple special teams lapses that gives the Bears the ball on the Eagles 40 a couple of possessions. They just have not been able to find any kind of offensive cohesion that works. And I think they have a quarterback in place that they can build around. It's one of those situations where maybe you're just trying to get through this season with what you have, with, you know, the playbook that you have. And then this offseason, you can scrap it. You can get everybody on the same page. Maybe you make some coaching changes to bring people in who can work with a running quarterback like Justin Fields and use all of his abilities. But you spend this offseason starting from ground zero, you know, wiping everything off the table and starting fresh. But for this week, you can't do that. You just kind of have to keep plugging away. And I don't see how the Bears keep up.
You know, the one thing I guess that concerns me a little bit is I've been talking all year. It's really difficult to game plan for the Eagles because of the +1 aspect that Jalen Hurts offers from the running game perspective. Now, you combine that with all the talent, as we said, it becomes even more difficult for an opposing defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Eagles are going to get at least a little taste of their own medicine with Fields, and even to a higher degree. Disrespect alert. So get ready. Justin Fields is a better runner than Jalen Hurts. Justin Fields is an unbelievable runner. I never thought I'd put somebody in the category of Lamar Jackson. He's right there. He just set the NFL record, regular season record for rushing yards in the game. He's difficult to deal with from a running perspective. Can you practice for that? I mean, the Eagles have a quarterback, but you see it. The Eagles have a quarterback. They practice against him every day. But I always compare it, Jody knows this, playing Navy in college. Like, opposing coaches hate playing Navy, not because they're good, because they drive you crazy because nobody else plays the way they play. Not many teams play the way Chicago plays, and just it's sort of Randall Cunningham-ish, John.
Yeah.
We're back in the Buddy Ryan days where we got nothing. Just go make a play. That does the lack of organization make it in a weird way more difficult?
It probably does to a degree. I mean, coaches like to know what they're going to go up against, but I think with Justin Fields and his running ability, the reason Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and other guys who have had success as running quarterbacks is that they were able to develop their skills as a passer too. And so you can, Fields doesn't have really anybody to throw to on the outside. They don't really have a functioning running game outside of Fields to lean on. So when that's your only card that you can play, you can say, okay, Justin, you can run for 100 yards against us. But if you're passing for 100 yards and none of your running backs are getting more than 25, 30 yards today, you're still going to win that game. And so I think as unpredictable maybe as Justin Fields and the Bears offense has been over these last few weeks, they still haven't been winning football games. And the Eagles are a much better team than any of the teams the Bears have played over these last few weeks. So there'll probably be some plays that make you pull your hair out. He'll probably convert a 3rd and 15, and he'll probably have a series or two where he does some damage on the ground. But he's got to be able to pass the ball in order to sustain a high number of points every week. And I just don't think he can do that this week.
All right, John, the Eagles' safety position across from Mr. Epps.
Mm-hmm.
Before the season started, people were worried. We're not good enough the other safety position. And all of a sudden, Howie Roseman makes a trade and adds a starting safety, not a starting safety, a guy who leads the league in interceptions safety. And everybody is happy as all get out. And then he gets hurt. We got to go with Reed Blankenship, undrafted, free agent. Is he going to really give me? And he gets a couple of games under his belt, makes plays, and go, holy mackerel. Another Howie Roseman find out of nowhere. Reed Blankenship. We're good. He goes down. So now it's Anthony Harris back to the rescue, a guy who was here. And I almost forgot that he was here for all of preseason. They didn't cut him till last cut.
Right.
It seems like he's been gone forever. In actuality, he's only got a couple of months. Is it just plug and play? Is the Eagle defense that good? Is Gannon got this in place that you can throw anybody at safety and they're going to perform above and beyond expectations?
It's interesting I think to a degree, because you've got three cornerbacks that you just don't need to worry about as far as pass coverage. And that's a real blessing when you're safety and your job is to kind of take deep middle or whatever it is, Gannon has dialed up for that particular week. He didn't play with Denver this year. Harris played only on special teams. He didn't play in their defensive system at all. So I don't know that you're going to get out there and throw him into 95% of the snaps or whatever it is. But I think they absolutely want to limit the amount of time Kayvon Wallace is on the field. I think that's smart. So I do think we're going to see a heavy dose of Anthony Harris. I think he'll probably be in the starting lineup. And the fact that he was with this team last year and he was with them in training camp, and we all expected him to be the other starter this year with this team the whole season. He knows the system. He knows Jonathan Gannon. There's not a learning curve there. I think it's just a matter of, he's in good football shape. He was with the Broncos. It's not like he was, rehabbing an injury or something like that. But he hasn't played on defense really this year. So it's just a matter of how many snaps they think he can take and be effective. But they're going to play him, I think, as much as they can play him this Sunday.
All right. Well, let's get in the weeds from a roster perspective, John. If they're going to start Anthony Harris, does that mean who are they going to sit? Because Dallas Goedert's going to be activated. They have an open roster spot. That's going to Dallas. They have to elevate Brett Kern because they need a punter, even though they might not punt. Who knows?
Yeah.
They go for it so much on 4th down. They're so effective offensively, but you need a punter. Yeah. So he's got to be one of the elevations. Anthony Harris in your scenario would be the other elevation. Does that mean it does mean you can't elevate Christian Ellis, who has been a godsend on special teams. What do you do? Do you wait for Anthony Harris until Dallas? Because this is why I throw it out to you. Kayvon is good in run support, not a good pass coverage safety. Anthony Harris is more pass coverage than run support. Chicago runs the football with the quarterback and the running game. They're not going to scare you throwing it. Do you play that little game and wait for Dallas before you see Anthony Harris?
I don't think you do that. I think you play Anthony Harris. I think with Dallas Goedert coming back, did they have 3 tight ends active last week? Was Tyree Jackson active last week? Because if Tyree Jackson is still,
yeah, Jackson played.
Okay, yeah, he's not going to be active. I mean, Tyree's not going to be active.
Right.
They could waive him.
So you drop one of the tight ends. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you drop one of the tight ends, whatever it is. In
you
order to
make
some room there.
Do the Eagles want to play that game and try to get Tyree Jackson through waivers? There's a lot of players. Trey Sermon, who's never active on game. Ian Book, you can put the quarterback on the practice squad. But you risk all these players. If you do that, you got to get them through waivers. So the question is, do you want to play that game? Personally, I think Christian Ellis belongs on the 53. So they should cut anybody. He's been so good on special teams. I can't imagine that they're not going to keep playing him the rest of the season.
Yeah, I would keep. The special teams were a real problem, and he has been a big help. I would be more comfortable keeping him and risking losing a guy like Tyree Jackson on waivers. I mean, Dallas Goedert was out these last 4 weeks, and frankly, Calcaterra and Jack Stoll were far more useful than Tyree Jackson was. And I know Jackson, they like him. They think he might have a future there, but you've got Dallas Goedert here for forever. That's kind of the direction I think I would go is lose whoever the team believes is their 4th tight end. I don't know that teams are going to be clamoring to get themselves a Tyree Jackson at this point in the season.
You know who I would expose? Ian Book.
Yeah,
I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, to be truthful with you. If you put a lineup in front of me, Eagles 3rd string quarterback, I guess that one of the
guys.
You
don't remember him from Notre Dame? He played a lot of high-profile games at Notre Dame.
He had a helmet on whenever I saw it. You take the helmet off that guy. Ian Book. Oh, no, that's John Stolnis. I'm telling you,
right.
I could incorrectly identify Ian Book. I have no idea what the guy looks like. And the way that he plays also, that adds into it.
Yeah.
NFC game this week. Bears are a bad team, admittedly. The standings say so. The numbers say so. Everything says so. But there are certain reasons why people are looking ahead to the Cowboys. The Eagles have said all the right things, but are they thinking all the right things? Certainly, we brought this up before we ever got to this week. The look-ahead game of the year is the Chicago game because it's the Giants before, the Cowboys after, on the road. There are a lot of elements that point to this game as a trap game, look-ahead game, call it whatever you want. I know you understand the point I'm trying to make. Should anybody have any fear about that? Or is it just, Jody, the Eagles are the best team in the NFL, and the Bears are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Even if they are not 100% focused, doesn't matter. Talent's going to will out, and the Eagles are going to win this game handily. How do you look at it?
It could be that Eagles fans, knowing what happened with the Cowboys last week against the Texans, knowing that, sure, on any given Sunday, that could happen to you. You could be looking past a game, or you just might not have your A game that day. I do believe in trap games. I do think they're a real thing. I know there are a lot of people who don't believe in that, but with Jalen Hurts and this team, they've proven to be almost impervious to trap games. I can't remember the last time the Eagles fell victim to one of those. I mean, could you argue? I don't think the loss that they suffered this year to the Commanders was necessarily a trap game. They just suffered a lot of bad luck in that game, and the Commanders had a great game plan that they took too long to adjust to. So I don't necessarily think this is a trap game. I'm not worried. I think when your team is 12-1 and you look like you have one of the best, if not the best, Eagles team in front of you in franchise history, and I would argue if the Eagles regular season continues this way and they go on to win a Super Bowl, you're looking at one of the great NFL teams of all time, given their dominance and what their record could end up being. And so we're still a long ways away from something like that. But if this season is trending in that direction, I don't see a letdown game coming this Sunday. And I'll tell you something. I think if the Eagles have a letdown game going into Chicago, I think the same could very much be said for the opportunity for the Cowboys to have a letdown game. I know coming off of Houston, they may not be resting on their laurels as much as maybe the Eagles would be, but they're going into Jacksonville this weekend to play a Jaguars team that's playing really, really well right now. And you're going on the road, and they probably are looking ahead to this Eagles matchup on Christmas Eve. If the Eagles have a trap game on Sunday, then I think the Cowboys have just as much of a trap game on Sunday themselves against the Jaguars in Jacksonville. I think it's more likely they lose that game than the Eagles lose in Chicago.
By the way, the head coach believes in trap games. He told me they are real. And the Eagles have already had some trap games, but they're so talented they've been able to overcome them. Houston they didn't play well in Houston on a short week in a big trip. Arizona, Indianapolis, they didn't play well in those games, but they were good enough to overcome it and win. I think they might have. This is the ultimate trap game this season, because of Dallas on Christmas Eve, how bad Chicago is. This is it. This is the ultimate trap game, but they're just going to out-talent them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the way it's gone for this team this season. But I think you're right, John. Also the players, and it starts with Jalen Hurts. They've been very good at trying to avoid it. But there's that, I always talk about the human nature aspect. I mean, it is what it is. You go, you're 12-1 playing a disaster of a team. It's kind of hard to have the same oomph as if you're playing another good team.
Yeah.
And again, I think it speaks to the talent level and where this team is. Is this the most talented team in football from top to bottom?
Yes, I think so. I mean, there's the Chiefs are very good. The Bills are very good. The 49ers are very good. I still, there's still a lot of questions about their quarterback, but he looked really good last week. I think top to bottom, though, this roster, there weren't many question marks about this roster as the season began. The biggest question mark on this team was the quarterback. The quarterback has shown to be the franchise guy and way better than any of us could have ever expected him to be. So, yeah, I think you're there. We've talked about it. I know Eagles fans have talked about it. Where's the weakness on this team? There's a weakness whenever you have injuries at one spot. And so for sure, safety right now appears to be the one area of weakness on this team. But offensively, they do everything well. If you take something away, they have two other things that they can reach up and grab. And it's just a matter of how quickly they're able to adjust in game. Defensively, they're able to just put their cornerbacks. They have the best cornerback trio in football right now. The defensive line is playing at a level we haven't seen since Jim Johnson's best days with those mid-2000 teams. I mean, it's just, I don't, unless the Eagles come out and make uncharacteristic mistakes like they did against Washington, they're not losing. And it really doesn't matter who they play. They're just not going to lose. I do think they're the most talented team in the NFL. And I think the reason Eagles fans are looking for, or maybe not looking for, but overly cautious about a letdown game or a trap game is because we're not used to seeing this from an Eagles team.
I know.
Even in 2004, you had the Patriots in the AFC, and you could argue, how good are the Eagles really? And they had all those NFC championship games they lost and all that. The Buddy Ryan days, there was always something going on. Their quarterback had holes. But this team just doesn't look like they have any flaws, and that's really weird.
Amazing. Real quick, funny story. Nick Sirianni was wearing Jason Kelsey's new underdog gear yesterday, the sweatshirt and the hat, and he was coming off the podium, and I said, why are you wearing that? You're never the underdog. They're just not used to it. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And if it works, I always say, if it works, use it. But, they try to keep this sort of shell of underdog. They're not the underdog. No. They're the best team.
Yeah, but just let me add this to the mix. This will annoy the Eagle fans, but like facts hurt from time to time. some betting outlets, some don't, some do. Some betting outlets put out in advance lines. The line is out for the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Oh boy.
The Cowboys are a 1-point favorite. So if Sirianni wants to wear the underdog thing, you can put it on Sunday night coming back on the plane, because you will officially have gotten
you know, as a long time and you have the expertise on betting, that line says the Eagles are the better team.
Yeah,
because you get 3 points traditionally for being the home team. So
the underdog
essentially,
is the underdog, John.
Essentially,
you can do your own factoring in as to why you get to a certain number.
Well, I'm not making it up.
One team's a favorite and one team's an underdog. It's pretty simple. You're one or the other, unless it's a pick 'em game. And the Cowboys are a 1-point favorite over the Eagles.
For 1 week in a year through, they're going to go 18 weeks, and be the underdog once.
Yes.
That's not an overall underdog.
That's the week you put the hat on, you put the sweatshirt on.
Well, you make anything to fit your narrative.
Out of the 18 weeks, you are an actual underdog. Yes.
Yeah. You make anything to fit your narrative.
On what happens this week, because it is an advanced line. Oh, that could change by the time we get the kickoff.
Oh, yeah.
Eagles go out and beat the Bears 42-6. Cowboys either lose or sneak by the Jaguars like they did the Texans this week, and you may see the Eagles as a favorite anyway. Like I said, it's an advanced line. All right, I want to talk to you about something in advance, Mr. Stolness, because we've already started the conversation, and, man, it's going to get heated. Eagles beat the Bears this week with talent, whatever. Blah. They play the Cowboys. The Eagles find a way to win. They blow them out. They're unbelievable. Greatest team ever, as John Stolness just said, one of the greatest teams in the history of the National Football League, depending on how it goes. But how are you going to factor in those 2 JV losses at the end of the season when the coach decides, the organization decides, I apologize, it's not the coach, it's the entire organization, preserving health much more important than us establishing ourselves as one of the greatest teams of all time. We saw how the JV did last year against the Cowboys in week number 18. Not good. Are there going to be any debate? Are we going to be screaming and yelling about how can they sit those guys? Because, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings. They went to the JV look last year to preserve health and everything else. And then they played the Bucs, and it was 31-0 before you blinked.
Yeah.
So if there was supposed to be a benefit from last year of not playing your starters the last game of the season, it didn't manifest itself on the field come postseason time.
Right.
How big a discussion is this going to be? Because I think we're looking at 2 weeks. I think the Eagles are going to have everything locked up with not 1 week, 2 weeks to play. How much are we going to be debating this?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a big debate among the fan base. And I would certainly, I would love to see 16-1. I mean, there's been one other team in NFL history that won 16 regular season games. That Patriots team that went 16-0. Think about, I know this team's ultimate goal is winning a Super Bowl, and that's the right thing. You win a Super Bowl, your flags fly forever. 2017, we all still live off of that. Thank goodness for YouTube. Anytime we want, we can pop in some highlights. But I would love to see them if they win these next 2 games and they get to 14-1 and they lock up the number 1 seed. I still think there is some value in playing your starters a little bit, whether it's a series, a quarter, to keep them fresh, and to maybe give yourself a shot at 16-1. I mean, to be able to author a special season. It'll be special if they win a Super Bowl. And so I trying to remember that. But this feels like an opportunity to have like a 1991 Washington football team type season. That season with Rippon and those guys running through the regular season. And that team lost 2 games. They lost their last game of the season against the Eagles at Veterans Stadium. And they're still, because of the blitz that they went on in the playoffs, they're still widely regarded as one of those great NFL teams of all time, like a top 10 NFL team at all time. That's in front of this Eagles team if they can do this. And I think that would be really special. I would hate to see them miss that opportunity. But I wouldn't have. I couldn't argue with the coaching staff if they decided to just sit everyone those last 2 weeks, because again, last year it's a different team than last year. That team that lost to the Buccaneers last year probably loses the very same way, even if they played their starters in that final week of the season. So I would I understand the idea of resting them. I still would love to see 16-1 if they get to 14-1.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I think people don't factor in, John, is, the preseason environment. Now, you have 90 players throughout the preseason, then you cut down to 85, and you have all these bodies that you can play.
Yeah.
You only have the game day roster, 46,
Right.
47. Somebody's got to play. And even last year, remember, COVID was, the NFL declared it over, but it was still a thing. And I think the Eagles placed 12 players on the COVID list before that game.
Yes.
So they got to elevate everybody from the press. You can't do that this year.
Yeah.
True.
So you got to play somebody.
Yeah.
So to me, it's more of a targeted thing. Do you rest Jalen Hurts? Do you rest AJ Brown? Guys got to play.
Yeah.
There's only so many bodies. They have to play, and you can pull them at halftime or whatever and try to get through a game. But the numbers make it almost difficult to just completely shut down.
Right. I think that's true. And, the Devontae Smith, has to play or some point. I mean, you can't make Quez Watkins your one and try to fill out the rest of your receiver group with guys under Quez Watkins. I mean, you can have a Watkins Pascal game and go 3 tight ends all day.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's not a good look necessarily. And the NFL, especially because they're probably going to be playing teams that are fighting for a postseason spot. I'm blanking on who their I know they play the Giants in the final week of the season. And I'm blanking on who their second to last team is. The Saints. Yeah. So you got that. And that's the other thing to factor in, that Saints pick. If you beat the Saints, you improve your draft position.
Yeah,
they want to win that game. So I think it'll be some combination. Like you said, they can't do what they did last year.
Well,
all right. I'm going to ask you to look into the crystal ball here, and it'll seem kind of far afield, but I think it's important. In 2023 NFL season, Miles Sanders will be carrying the football for what team?
Oh, boy. Yeah, he's emerged as a really important person in this offense. I think, could they franchise tag him? I can't remember the last time the Eagles franchised someone. And I don't know they want to pay that much to a running back. He's going to make a lot of money.
I think the number is actually still pretty big.
Yeah.
A guy like Christian McCaffrey runs the average number up.
Yeah, there's certain guys that ruin the number. Yeah. Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott. There's some guys who got paid big money, so they kind of ruin the number.
I mean, you don't have, outside of your first round pick, you've traded away a number of your draft picks here in the 23 draft. So you can't really get a rookie running back, and you're not going to spend your first round pick on a running back. I don't think they feel like they can just hand the keys over to Kenny Gainwell to be your Miles Sanders guy. Now, I haven't looked at who's available in free agency, so I don't know those names off the top of my head.
Starts with Josh Jacobs. That might actually help the Eagles and Miles, because there are a lot of good running backs set to be free agents. And, as good as Miles has been, I think it starts with Jacobs. And if anybody's getting big money, it probably starts with him. But we'll see how that shakes out. Last one from me, John, and follow John at John Stolness on Twitter, bleedinggreen.com. Read them there. Eye on the Enemy podcast and The Good Fight. I always jump that in for the Phillies. Give a little Phillies love, hot stove love.
Yeah.
Jody said, where's Miles Sanders going to be playing next year? Where's Shane Steichen going to be coaching next year? Because it isn't here.
No. Well, I mean, you look at Chicago. He could be playing the team.
Oh, Matt Eberflus, one and done. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you have an opportunity to get an offensive-minded head coach
with a quarterback, that's the way they should have went to begin with.
It is. Yeah. It was galaxy brain stupid what they did, bringing him in with that young quarterback. That just makes it. I think you want to use Shane Steichen's perfect spot would be a team that has a good young quarterback that you can build around. And I think Chicago has the possibility for that with Justin Fields. I think we've seen that.
I'm going to throw one out to you, John. What about Denver? Because Nathaniel Hackett's gone.
Yeah.
Now they have Russell Wilson, a veteran quarterback, but I think Shane's proven he will morph to what he has. I think that would be a nice landing spot for him.
Yeah, I could see that because Denver, they have enough talent elsewhere, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to win football games, to be a competitive team in a division that's not as good as I think we thought it was going to be. Now you got the Chargers and the Chiefs, and you've got those two quarterbacks out there. They're always going to be tough, but Denver can be a playoff team out there. They can be a contender in the AFC West if they can get their act together. So I think that could be and Denver's always been an attractive place for coaches to go. It's always been a great organization. They have a winning culture there. And like you said, they have Russell Wilson for a long time. So there's some certainty at quarterback. So I think that could very easily work. Yeah.
All right. I'll make both of you guys Shane Steichen for the minute, and you got to make a call. Here are your two choices. You can either be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, sans Tom Brady, and you got to figure out who the hell your next quarterback is, or he aces out Jonathan Gannon and gets the Houston Texans gig, and you know who your next quarterback's going to be. It's either going to be Young or it's going to be Stroud. You're taking your next quarterback number one in the NFL draft. If you're Steichen, which job you want?
I would be terrified to go be the Texans head coach because that is an organization that has never had any success at all. And even though they've had early first-round quarterback picks, it's almost as if whoever the Texans pick, it's going to be the wrong guy, or the guy is going to get injured and blow out his ACL, and he's never going to play again. So I don't know that you can look at the Texans for those reasons and say, I can't take that job. You're right.
In Jody's scenario, I would have to take Texans because at least there's a clear path to the quarterback.
Right.
Hopefully you have a big word in who that quarterback is going to be, but I hear you. That organization has been a disaster. That Shane might say, let me wait. Maybe the Chargers fire Brandon Staley in another year, and I can go reunite with Justin Herbert.
And and maybe what you see with Tampa too is they have so much talent around the quarterback. Who knows what they can do in the offseason, if swing a trade for Lamar Jackson or something,
There we go.
Something. Take that. Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty good. So yeah, I like you can, when you have a lot of talent, you can kind of get away with a little bit at quarterback like the Lions are doing right now. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, guys, I was talking to Dallas Goedert for a long time yesterday, and out of nowhere, he told me, and Jody, I swear, I didn't prompt him at all. I swear, out of nowhere, he told me the Lions are the best team the Eagles have faced this year, talent-wise. He said, I don't care what anybody says. The Lions are the best team.
Might be a slight overstatement, but they scared the snot out of me. They're playing the Jets this week. I had a Jet buddy text me and make a pick on the game. He's picking the Jets. And I said, sorry to say, I don't think that's happening this week. I kind of got on the Lions bandwagon over the last couple of weeks. And
I was shocked when he said it. I was like, what? Really? He said,
see, now that's being utterly disrespectful to the Minnesota Vikings, the Dallas Cowboys. How dare Dallas Goedert not give respect to the Cowboys? Funny, I don't think we'll hear that hue and cry from Eagle fans here on our stream. How dare Dallas Goedert not give respect to the Cowboys, to the Commanders who beat the Eagles? Lions didn't beat the Eagles.
Yeah. A lot of disrespect. Yeah, good point. A lot
so
of
disrespectful, guys.
So disrespectful. John Stolnis, you never are. We appreciate it whenever you jump in with us. We will be inviting you back for more disrespect at a future date. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Always happy to, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
John Stolnis, Eye on the Enemy podcast, Eagle podcast, and contributor on bleedinggreennation.com as well. Johnny Mac coming back. We kind of teased this right before John get on. I want to ask John about it. John McMullen. I'm getting confused with my John Stolnis and McMullen.
A lot of Johns.
About the CEO status of a head coach. John said something that I was going to ask him that very question about what Nick Sirianni is getting done this year and what kind of an effect it's going to have on the National Football League, not just the Eagles, but on the NFL as well. We'll get into that when we get back here on Birds 365.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Got your Mac guys here on Birds 365. McDonald and McMullen with you. Coming up in, less than 20 minutes from now. Easy Ed Kratz, Special Ed Kratz is going to jump in board with us here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, I do want to talk about Coach Nick Sirianni for a second here. And let me preface this by saying no disrespect meant to Jalen Hurts.
A lot of disrespect. That's the theme of the show.
Overly defensive of Jalen Hurts and his MVP status. I'm on record as saying, yes, right now,
MVP.
Have the vote, Jalen Hurts, MVP.
But
I will say there's more of a chance that Jalen Hurts doesn't win the MVP than there is Nick Sirianni not winning Coach of the Year. Who's got a bigger lead right now in their respective award category? I'll take Nick Sirianni as Coach of the Year over Jalen Hurts as the MVP. There are cases to be made for a couple other guys on the MVP side. Who the hell is in the same sentence with Nick Sirianni for Coach of the Year of the NFL? It's not even close as far as I'm concerned.
I think, Brian Daboll was in the conversation, but he's fallen off dramatically.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell was in the conversation, but he's fallen off. Nick is a significant favorite.
He's a runaway leader in that category. And if that's disrespectful to Jalen Hurts, because I'm saying Nick Sirianni is more of a lock to win Coach of the Year than he is the MVP, sorry, Jalen, but that's the way I see it. So we all agree that Sirianni is having this unbelievable year, doing this unbelievably great job. And he is a CEO coach. He gave up the play calling last year. Didn't tell anybody about it till after the fact. And it has been the case all year. Shane Steichen do a great job calling the plays. We're just discussing where will Shane Steichen be landing as a head coach next year in the NFL. The NFL is a copycat league, John. Always has been, always will be. You and I have both been covering it for a long time. And it's been that way forever, as long as you and I have been following it, 40, 50 plus years. And he's going to be the runaway Coach of the Year. The Eagles have already had a great season. We expect it to continue. We expect a playoff run, a potential Super Bowl, and the like. In the hiring this upcoming offseason, or maybe even within teams that like their coach, want to keep their coach, but think something has to change, maybe they call the coach in and go, listen, we want you to stay as the coach. We believe in you, but it's working elsewhere where the coach is not calling plays, that they're not the offensive coordinator de facto or the defensive coordinator de facto. We want to hire someone to work on the side of the ball that you're overly involved in right now. We want you to take a step back and take control of the entire organization. Kind of like the way Nick Sirianni does in Philadelphia. We got any chance of that happening in the league this year?
There's a slight groundswell in that. I don't want, that's a bad word. There's a slight shift that way. Brian Daboll is doing that. He's not calling the plays, which surprised me a lot because of his reputation, but he's letting Mike Kapka call the plays. So there's a slight movement in that direction. You know me, I've talked about that for a long time. I believe that's the way to do it. Otherwise, you just have co-head coaches and you got the wrong titles. I always go back to Sean McVay because Sean McVay was always the template. Everybody was looking for Sean McVay. When Sean McVay first got the Rams job, Wade Phillips was who he brought in as the defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator for a very long time. He used to go sit on the bench when they were playing defense, talking to Jared Goff and focusing on what he was going to do when they got the ball. He didn't even pay attention. He didn't even pretend to pay attention. Now he pretends to pay attention. But back then he didn't. And I thought, that's not what I want. Years and years ago, I talked about this with Tom Coughlin because it was always counterintuitive to me it's such a big job. The one thing I've talked to so many coaches over the years, and I say, what's the biggest surprise? How much other stuff? Every single one of them says how much other stuff you have to do. It's not just football. You have, media. You have community. You got to meet with the TV crews. There's so many people pulling you in different directions. It's such a big job. And they all say the same thing. Oh, I didn't know, I didn't know how much time I'd be away from football with all this other ancillary stuff, schedules, logistics, setting up your practice schedule, how you want to do things. All these things, it is such a big job. And when you're bogged down on game day, calling plays, especially as an offensive guy, that's when you have the time management issues. That's when you have all the obvious mistakes that fans are sitting on their couch going, what are you he's worried about the next play. We're not allowed to do it. Back in the day, we used to be able to go on the sidelines at the end of games. Last 4 minutes, you used to be able to go out on the sidelines. Man, that is such a fast game, Jody. Forget about the players on the field. It's an amazing thing to see on the field. But just how quickly things move and just how chaotic the sidelines are, 40 seconds goes quick, goes really quick. And they're cutting off the communication.
The microphone.
They cut it off. You got to be bang. And it just doesn't make sense to me. So I asked Tom Coughlin, who became a CEO coach, but he wasn't a CEO coach at the beginning. And I asked him, why? What? To me, you'd get your feet under you, and then you would call plays when you got your feet under you. And he said it's the exact opposite. The reason people call plays to begin with is you have to make sure everybody's on your page as a head coach. And then when you make sure everybody's on your page, then you can give it off. Then you can hand it off. But the last thing you want to do is lose your coach. You lose your opportunity with guys who aren't doing what you want. So that's how Tom explained it to me. And I always thought it made some sense after he explained it to me.
And as a matter of fact, that's kind of what happened here in Philadelphia because Nick called the plays to start the season last year. And then I don't know if it was he felt comfortable enough as you just described, or if it was more a case of, and this is what I would think it was, They didn't go off to a very good start. Wasn't working real well. Nick said, let's try something different. So he went to Steichen calling the plays and it started to work. So there was a foregone conclusion. All right, we're sticking with this. And for one of our guys on the stream who either isn't getting the point I'm trying to make or you're trying to make, Philly T Noise, guys get hired without really calling plays at all. See, Andy Reid, never coordinator. Dougie P, very irregularly called plays and fun. And what's the first thing they did when they became head coach of the Eagles? Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. What'd they do? Who'd they assign to call plays, John McMullen?
They called plays themselves.
That's the point we're trying to make. Not you get hired by your ability to call plays or not. No, we're talking about CEO coaches, which is you give up play calling, even though you may have been a play call or you were associated with one side of the ball. No, you come in and you run both. And that's one of the reasons why Nick Sirianni, for me, has been an unquestioned coach of the year in the NFL this year. He actually talks to Jonathan Gannon. They have a good relationship. He's involved, like you mentioned, the Rams coach on the sideline. Doesn't even try and hide it. Wade Phillips, you coach the defense, I coach the offense. Never the two shall meet. You take care of your side, I'll take care of my side. Oh, no, Sirianni's talking to both sides of the football every single week. Throughout the game, he's on top of the entire game, whether the Eagles are on offense or defense. He really does almost define the way you and I kind of see it, the way it should be, or at least we think we do. He's the CEO coach of the National Football League, so that's why I asked you the question. Will we see?
And by the way, and I get why you say it. I talked to Nick about this enough. I believe him. He didn't give up play calling because they weren't successful. He gave up play calling because he implicitly, number one, trusts Shane Steichen. They're very close. Kevin Patullo as well. They are all on the same page. It's his offense and Shane, and so much of it is the preparation before the game. Where he was making mistakes is overseeing the game, and he admitted it. It's too much. It's too much. You get bogged down. And he was making too many mistakes overseeing the game that he wasn't happy with. And he has people in place. And he also told me, if he didn't have people in place that he trusted as much as Shane, and he didn't have that relationship, he might still be calling the plays, which goes back to what Tom Coughlin says, at least until you get to that point. So I do believe him that. But I don't even think, he gave up play calling in the Chargers game last year. They lost
before,
that game
after, during.
Before. They lost that game 27-24. That was the first game that Shane called plays. Since that game, they lost that game. But since that game, 18-3 as the play caller. And if you look at the three losses, 18-4 with playoffs, but regular season, if you look at the three losses, one of them was the Giants game we all talked about coming off this week. Jalen Reagor, the 2 drops. Worst game of Jalen Hurts' starting career, certainly. But they still were in a position to win the game. They were still in a position. The second loss we just talked about with John Stolness, the Dallas game where they put 12 people on the COVID list and they shut it down and are playing the JB. And then they lost to Washington this year. That's it. That's it. They're 18-3. And they don't make mistakes generally when it comes to. And Nick talked.
You kind of do need to put the Tampa game into that mix.
I said 18-4 with the playoffs. Tampa was just better. Tampa was just better. Tampa was just a better team, and they've gotten a lot better talent-wise from this season to last season. That's where Howie and I said the Eagles are the template organization because Howie's part of this as well. I also believe what the Eagles do well, GM should be in charge of personnel. Head coach should have nothing to do with it. But the GM has to get players the head coach wants and fits the head coach's system. So it's a very delicate balance, but the Eagles have found it and done it the right way. We were just talking about, I asked Nick this question yesterday, so everybody can go online and look at his answer. And he's talking about 4th down decisions, and he's talking about clock management. and he just got much better at it because he's not bogged down with the play-to-play 40-second, buyer drill that calling NFL plays is. It just makes sense.
I agree with you wholeheartedly that if you've got the right people in place, whether you hire them the day you get the job or you've got a relationship with them, or you even find one at some point, the best case scenario is you have someone else call your plays on defense, you have someone else call your plays on offense, and you oversee everything. And it's working to perfection for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. I think you got to give them that much. All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We are Mac and Mac, Birds 365. Coming up next, Ed Kratz, John's running buddy from Sports Illustrated, frequent contributor to the show, is going to jump in. We'll see if Eddie thinks that the Bears can keep it close on Sunday, or will it be a blowout of epic proportions, since the Eagles have kind of done that to their last two opponents. Will they do it to their necks, or are they distracted by a trap game, a comment by a rival's defensive player, or any other reason that the Eagles could stub their toe this week? We'll run it all by Ed Kratz of Sports Illustrated. He's up next here on Birds 365.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Not easy. Ed Kratz hasn't logged in yet. We're hoping he does so in the next couple of minutes. And when he does, we will surely punch him up. John McMullen, Jody McDonald hanging out with you here on Birds 365. All right, here's one of the questions that I'm going to ask Ed when we get him on. So I'll put it to you instead. At some point tomorrow, we'll make our pick on the game, how close we think it's going to be. I'm certainly leaning toward an Eagle victory. But I think it could be more competitive than sounds like some of the guys we've had on as guests this week, and you, Johnny Mac. But neither one of us is on the record as to what we think the final score is going to be, and that's kind of the key to me. That outweighs everything else what the final score is. Every once in a while, you get an by the way touchdown that scored, which was the Giants last week. And just think of how ugly it was up until the Giants got that last touchdown. And they did get it to make the score closer than it actually was. Yeah. And it was still a beatdown of epic proportions. God, they killed the Giants last week. Here's one of the ways I will judge how big a victory the Eagles have. You used the phrase the other day on the show here, John. We'll see if Ed Kratz uses the same phrase. Garbage time. Which
not a garbage time. I brought up Todd Rundgren in the press box. I needed Ed's help. I said, who sang that song? The Eagles don't want to work, man. They don't want to work.
I think we need to come up with a new phrase for that. The same way that in describing Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant, it's disrespectful is what it is. And we're all being very careful of not being disrespectful these days because people jump to the disrespectful charge rather quickly these days. So I'm going to try not to say Mr. Irrelevant anymore. I'm going to say last but not least. And I think we need to come up with a new phrase for garbage time. And I was thinking along the lines of designated growth snaps. That is much less disrespectful than garbage time. So I'm going to call them designated growth snaps. And for the Eagles, that would include
JG likes that. Yeah.
Nakobe Dean, Zach Mack, Josh Jobe, those guys getting in the field in designated growth snaps. Will we even get to that, Ed Kratz, this week? Will we have designated growth snaps for some of the younger Philadelphia Eagles because the game is non-competitive in the fourth quarter?
I think that's too long. Designated. What was it?
It is long. Well, maybe we can get it down.
Growth snaps. That's 3 words. Garbage time is 2 words. Yeah,
TGS.
You're right. You might go from 2 to 3. Yeah. Come on,
but you make it down by syllables. It's like, what is it? Designated gross. That's like 7 syllables versus 2.
3.
Yeah, I'm a syllable guy.
Yeah, that's true. Ed's got a point. Solid point. Maybe we can DGS if we can get people on. Then we can create an acronym.
I think you need a vowel in there somewhere if you're going to do an acronym. You need to stick.
I'm sticking with designated growth snaps.
Yeah,
I'm sticking with garbage time.
Yeah, a lot of garbage time for this team.
Trash talk.
What? When we talk about that Giants game, and now the Bears are coming up this week. Obviously, we're talking about a 12-1 football team. So the Eagles are really good. Any concern though that I mean they are at this point of the season? I always thought there's no Alabama schedules whomever Wofford. I'm disrespecting certain colleges now, but you have these designated wins, to use Jody's designation. You have these designated wins on the schedule. As you get later in the NFL schedule, everybody tries to win early, and you have all these upsets. But then you start doing the thought process: do we want to lose, draft standing? People start to rest guys. If somebody's got a banged up ankle, they know they're a terrible team. Maybe they fight through it earlier in the season. Point I'm trying to make is teams give up. The Eagles have this stretch where the Giants weren't giving up, but they were really banged up. Tennessee was really banged up. Now they have the Bears, who are among the worst teams in the NFL. Is there any concern they're not being tested in these games?
Well, listen, I mean, I don't know how banged up Tennessee was. I mean, Tennessee was a good test.
They were banged up. They were really banged up.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that every team has injuries. I mean, it's week 15, whatever. I mean,
Yeah, were the Eagles not without Goddard and
Maddox? You could say the Eagles are banged up too, and yet they still win. I mean, so I don't know how much I get into that. I think they've been tested. I mean, the Giants came out and, they had them stopped on that third down on that first drive, and A.J. Brown was held or hands to the face or something on Fabian Moreau, picked up a first down for him. I just think, you just play who you play, and that's all you can do. And I don't think there's any chance that this team loses focus in Chicago. They have too many veterans, and I think it helps them that the Cowboys are playing well and that they're right on their heels. And they know that they can't really let up if they want to get the goal of winning the division and getting the number 1 seed. If the Cowboys are sitting there with 9 wins or 8 wins and they have a 3 or 4 game lead at this point, maybe you lose a little bit of focus, and, maybe you don't really push yourself against teams that you think are banged up or inferior. But I don't think there's a chance of that happening. And the Bears are inferior, but I don't know. I don't think it'll matter to the Eagles. I think it'll just be business as usual, and they'll lead to some designated
designated gross snaps.
Yeah.
Garbage time. I don't like garbage time. I don't like garbage. It skews everything. Skews stats. I don't like it.
You'd rather Nakobe Dean just stay riveted to the bench and play only on special teams?
Well, I can't get Nakobe in the game because TJ and Kaiser are playing too well, but it doesn't. I have a lot of.
Didn't you listen to your boy JG yesterday talk about how important these designated growth snaps
I
are?
listen to him all the time.
5, the 10, the 15, they all add up. Your guy said this, and you're poo-pooing it. You don't like it. You don't like what JG's saying, Johnny Mac?
No, I have no problem. I think, when you're blowing out a team, you should play those guys. I don't like garbage time for the fact that, everybody is, me. I'm not a big stat guy. So, it skews the stats and you don't know. Like the defense is playing so well, but they got skewed a little bit by the Giants picking up some yardage and garbage time and all that kind of stuff. I think it all factors in. I don't like it. I don't like garbage time. I don't like garbage time in the end. It's not fun, is what I'm trying to say. It's not fun, garbage time.
It's absolutely fun. I couldn't disagree with you more. And to me, you know how long it goes? I get real far field, but then we'll come right back. It all started with Hawthorne Wingo on the early 70s Knicks. He was the Knicks' 12th man, and they used to crush teams every single week. So the crowd would chant, "Wingo, Wingo, Wing." The Eagles crowd need to do this for Nakobe Dean. Nakobe.
Now that's disrespect. You're calling Nakobe Dean the 12th man.
He is. He's designated growth snaps. Facts are the facts. How many snaps has he played from scrimmage all year?
Of all people, Jody McDonald. That's a future superstar.
No, who I'm disrespecting is Jonathan Gannon, that he couldn't get him in until you got designated snap time.
Yeah.
So, Ortho Wingo, that was his name?
Ortho Wingo?
Hawthorne Wingo. You guys got to do some Googling and research after the show today.
Wow. Well, see, 12
Can't believe neither one of you know who Hawthorne Wingo is.
I don't know. I'm an NBA guy, too.
I wasn't there chanting.
Sedale Threet for the Sixers. He was one of those types. People get used to real excited when he would get in the game. But I hear what you're saying. The Eagles have been so good. That's the point. Let's Tom Bigby it and get it back to the Eagles. They've been so good to this point, Ed, at 12-1. Micah Parsons came out. The question's coming. Jordan Mailata handled it the way he handled it. I think Jalen Hurts used 5 words. I'm sure you saw the video by now. What was your take on it? Was Micah Parsons disrespecting Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I don't think it was really egregious at all, to be honest. I mean, I
watched it 8 times. Did I miss something? I keep trying to find what I missed. That was so disrespectful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't really see much there. I thought he was kind of giving credit to the team. Maybe he was in a backhanded way dissing Jalen Hurts somehow. But listen, I don't think he was. I mean, I think the thing I like about Micah Parsons is he speaks his mind. He's always done that, even at Penn State. I mean, he's always willing to speak his mind. And If that leads him down the wrong path, then so be it. But I don't think this time it did. I kind of thought it was pretty benign, to be honest. He didn't come out and say, Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback. He said he's good in the system they play. Like every player is built for a certain system and excels in a certain system. Dak Prescott's no different. He's playing within a system, and I didn't really quite see it. And I know it's been a big deal, and this week, yesterday, especially at Eagles practice, Nick was asked about it. Jordan was asked about it. Jalen. I didn't really think there was much there. Too much. I didn't think there was too much fire there at all.
Ed, will the re-addition of Dallas Goedert to the Eagles offense be seamless? Take a quarter, take a half, take an entire game, shake the rust off. How does Dallas Goedert being put back into the Eagle offense play this Sunday against the Bears?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they've really taken kind of a cautious approach with Jordan Davis. I know that they have some depth now on that defensive line, but I think he only played 6 or 7 snaps in his return. He only got 15 last week, so they've kind of been working him back up slowly. Jonathan Gannon said this week that, there could be some more snaps for him. So Avonte Maddox came back and they threw him out there for a good portion of snaps. I expect them to kind of do that approach, give Goddard a really good, solid run, kind of like they gave Maddox. He's just a top weapon on this team. And if he's healthy and he's ready to go and his shoulder proves that he can block, he's going to have a good role. He's going to have a pretty meaty role, I would guess. And the Eagles are going to throw him the ball. Jalen Hurts will throw him the ball. He was on track for a 1,000-yard season before he got hurt. So they're just going to, if he's healthy, they're going to use him. They're going to put him out there. And I think one good thing they learned was these backup tight ends. Everybody kind of wanted a better backup tight end, but listen, Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra especially really stepped up well. So a little bit more about what you have behind Dallas Goedert, and it's not as bad as some people may have thought. I mean, these guys, they were 4-0 without Dallas Goedert on the field. But that said, they're still the backups. They're going to go back to their roles, and Dallas Goedert, I think, is going to play, 70% of the snaps if he's fully healthy, and they're going to throw him the ball 5-6 times would be my guess.
Yeah, especially on third down. No, I think Jalen doesn't trust anybody more than Dallas Goedert on third down. Even A.J. Brown, I think he's this guy on third down. And, he's big. The Eagles deserve all the credit in the world for going 4-0 without Dallas Goedert, but it's big that he's back. I mean, they don't lose anyway, so it's partially that. But the biggest question mark to me, and I think it's really interesting because of the roster situation, is safety this week. It's pretty clear Reed Blankenship is not going to be able to play. So, he's not going to be out for 4 games, though. So they don't want to put him on injured reserve. They have 1 open roster spot, but that's going to Dallas Goedert. So they have 2 practice squad elevations. Now, they have to elevate the punter because he's got a punt, even in the Eagles are great offense. They're going to go for it on 4th down, but you need a punter just in case and a holder. So Brett Kern is going to be one of those elevations. The second one, you can elevate Anthony Harris and he can play and he can start and he knows the defense. He's been with Jonathan Gannon forever. But if you do that, then you don't have Christian Ellis, who has been a godsend to this special teams, but he's not on the 53 yet. They only have 1 elevation left on him. Then they're going to have to put him on the 53. Kayvon Wallace could start against a team who doesn't throw the ball much and doesn't throw it effectively. Do you wait 1 week for Anthony Harris? Do you wait for the Cowboys? Do you elevate Christian Ellis, or do you say, we got to start Anthony Harris?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought about that. I just kind of assumed they would do Harris and Kern. But you're right about Christian Ellis. He's been really helpful. I mean, he's got 4 special teams tackles, right, in his 2 elevations. He has 1 left. That's a good thought. I thought, would you rather have Kayvon Wallace or Anthony Harris playing back at safety this week? I think Kayvon.
Yeah, that's what makes it more interesting because his strength is run support.
Yeah, then you're a little thin, though. I mean, I know Josiah Scott. I think he had a couple safety reps against the Giants. So, yeah, that's an interesting thought because Anthony Harris won't play special teams. And frankly, I think Kayvon Wallace played pretty well against the Giants. You know, he might have been out of position a few times, but I thought he made some nice tackles in the game. I think he had 5 of them. And, you know, I think he's better than Harris at this point. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance that maybe Harris doesn't get elevated and they elevate Christian Ellis for a last time. Or maybe we see another Friday injury that leads to someone getting put on IR, and then maybe somebody gets activated to the 53, like the punter. Because listen, I don't know if Aaron Sippis is coming back.
Didn't they already put Sippis on IR?
He's on IR, but he's eligible to return, I think, in the last game of the season, right?
I don't think we're going to see Aaron.
I don't think we are. It sounded like Mike Clay was almost like writing him off for the season when we talked to Mike Clay on Tuesday. So
they're going to have to add Kern to the 53 eventually,
right? And
they might have to add Ellis eventually to the 53. I think they should, to be honest. And that means there's, it could be Trey Sermon, it could be Ian Book, it could be Tyree Jackson, it could be Janarius Robinson.
Here's what the question comes down to for me, and tell me if you guys disagree and I'm wrong. I think it's a Ellis Bradley thing more than anything else.
No, Sean?
Yeah.
He's hurt. Bradley's hurt.
He's hurt.
He's good.
No, he's a good player. Sean's not going anywhere.
But, that's a good point. Like, maybe he's injured enough that he goes on IR. I don't know.
If he's injured,
well, he is, right? I mean, he didn't.
No, I meant seriously enough.
Yeah, seriously injured.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know how severe that injury is, but maybe there's a chance that he gets IR'd. I don't know, but it's something they're going to have to figure out, and it's a good question. Maybe we could try to, get to the bottom of.
I think we're going to get that Trey Sermon Friday ankle sprain at some point.
He's kind of been
going to put him on IR.
Yeah. I'm guessing. That's going to go. The Eagles have been able to manipulate that. And, Jody and I were talking. I want to run this by you because it's interesting to me. Probably nobody else, but maybe it's interesting to Ed Kratz. The Eagles organization should be the template for this league and how they built this. And it goes from Howie Roseman as the GM in charge of personnel, but he gets the players the coaching staff wants. He's not that rogue, I'm going to give you the square peg to fit in the round hole. Jonathan Gannon wants to play light boxes. He loses Jordan Davis. He goes out and gets him Linval Joseph. He does those types of things. I think that's the first part of it. The second part, Nick Sirianni as the coach is involved with the whole team. He's not, disavowing the defense. He's not disavowing the special teams. He constantly says, my signature is on everything in this organization on the field. He's a CEO coach. I love that. And then you have the personnel, the talent, and what they've been able to put together. And it all starts with Jeffrey Lurie. We got to give him credit as well. And how many, I think 17 playoff berths now in the Jeffrey Lurie era, which is third, I believe, to New England, which is obvious, in Green Bay, which is also obvious. But they haven't had Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers for a decade plus. In the case of Tom, 2 decades. How impressed are you with this organization? Because I'm impressed with this organization.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to be. I mean, just even recently, they've made the playoffs in 5 of the last 6 years. And, you look at what they did in 2017, winning a Super Bowl, and then they tried to keep that window open for another year or 2, and then they kind of flushed it out. And even though there's still, I think it's 8 players left from that Super Bowl team, one of them is Rick Lovato, the long snapper, and then Elliott as the kicker. I mean, those are 2, and Derek Barnett, who's on IR. But what Howie and Lurie have been able to do here is just kind of flush this roster out and rebuild. And that's hard to do. It's only been 5 years since they won that Super Bowl. And now here they are 12-1 on the, certainly one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl and maybe win it. That's not easy to do. And I think it's a credit to the organization from top to bottom, to the scouts who, have helped Howie Roseman have some good drafts here. I mean, they're getting contributions from several of their players. They've made some smart free agent moves. Obviously, they've brought in guys in trades like Chauncey Gardner and AJ Brown. It's just very savvy moves. And there's a lot of teams that would love to go to win a Super Bowl and then 5 years later be on the brink again, but it's just not that easy. And the Eagles seem to make it look easy, but it isn't. It's a lot of hard work. And you're right. I give them, Lurie, Roseman, and the scouts, everybody involved with that front office, a lot of credit for having them back on the brink of possibly winning another Super Bowl.
All right, Eddie K, I have a Jody Mack staple for you, a hypothetical question. This, of course, can happen, but in my world it can, and I'm going to put you to it. You only have 3.5 more hours this week of watching football above and beyond the Eagles. Of course, you get to watch Eagles. But you can pick one other game to watch to give you as much insight as to where the Eagles sit. Are you taking tonight's Thursday nighter, San Francisco, Seattle? Are you taking Cowboys, Jags, which, oh, by the way, is in Jacksonville? So we get that idiot mascot in the Speedo down there in Jacksonville. He's almost worth watching just to laugh at him and make fun of him more so than the Cowboys. Or Sunday night football, Commanders, Giants. Can only watch one game if you're an Eagle fan other than the Birds. Who are you advising them to watch?
Well, it probably wouldn't tell me much about them, but I would say that I would probably pick Miami and Buffalo Sunday night, just because that's
you're already ahead to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's disrespectful to the other.
That's the thing. I saw enough of the Giants on Sunday. I don't want to see any more of the Giants.
I do not want to see the Commanders and the Giants. I guess if I had my pick of those games, I would probably say the Cowboys and the Jaguars. I mean,
what the hell's the Jaguars mascot's name? He's got.
I don't know. That's a Jimmy Kempsky question. Jimmy keeps tabs on all the mascots.
Designated Speedo growth guy.
Oh, look, there you go, Cratch. Very
nice. Good. That's called a callback in the world of comedy. I love it.
Just because that place is going to be packed with Cowboys fans, right? The Jacksonville Stadium.
Run.
But I think that's a game the Jags can win. I mean, Doug Peterson has his team playing well. Trevor Lawrence is the AFC Offensive Player of the Week.
Fighting through an injury, showing how tough he is to Bob Groats.
I'd like to see that Cowboys team a week before they play the Eagles, see what they look like, because we're all, we're thinking, well, okay, the Eagles might be looking ahead to the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, and the Bears, maybe they won't be as focused. I don't think that'll happen. But what about the Cowboys? Could they be looking ahead to the Eagles next week and overlook the Jaguars? So I'd probably want to watch that game. With tonight's game between the 49ers and Seahawks kind of being the second game, but again, I'm going right to the Super Bowl, man. I'm going right to the top. Yeah. Bills, Dolphins, Sunday night, probably in the snow, which I love those snow games.
Snow games are great.
Yeah.
I was talking to Dallas Goedert for a while in the locker room yesterday, and he broke something out on me that shocked me beyond belief. And I wasn't prodding. We were just, bull, whatting around, nothing more, nothing serious. And he said, I don't care what anybody says. Detroit's the best team we played all year. It shocked me. They played Minnesota. They played Dallas already once. Now, granted, Cooper Rush was there, but nonetheless. And their schedule is what it's been. Is that disrespectful? Jody brought that up. I didn't think of it at the time. It wasn't that. By the way,
completely disrespectful.
Who's he disrespecting there? The Cowboys?
Every other team. Yes, really much like you dismissing the entire NFC to watch an AFC game this week.
By the way, he wasn't being disrespectful at all. He was just giving his honest opinion. and he thinks they're underrated.
Oh, you mean kind of like Micah
Well,
Parsons?
and I said Micah wasn't being disrespectful at all. I'm very consistent, Jody.
Yes, you are.
Neither was being disrespectful. But if you start looking ahead to the playoffs, Detroit's one of those teams that might sneak into the back end. There's always one of those teams, you always get that tag. Oh, you don't want to play them. They're hot coming in, whatever the reason is. You got a team like that that could ruin the day of a good team, not even necessarily the Eagles, but anybody on the NFC that says, oh, this team might be getting hot at the right time, something of that nature.
The Lions could be that team. Yeah. There are probably reasons Goddard said it. Remember, that was the first game of the year when they were the Hard Knocks darlings, and Dan Campbell was biting kneecaps and, driving his team hard, and that place was rocking. I mean, I said it then, and I'll say it now, that was probably the second loudest environment I've ever been in to cover.
Yeah, I told you, Jody laughs at me. How crazy was that freaking environment?
It was nuts. And maybe that's because, even as the press corps, we're sitting out in the stands, really. We're in a press box, but it's not enclosed like so many of these venues are.
Yeah.
So we really got a feel for that, for how those fans were. And it was loud in there. And maybe that's why they might have been the best team. And they did play the Eagles tough. They came back, just fell a little short. But that was a tough environment, in the season opening game where was all these high hopes again, for the Lions. But I don't think the Lions would beat the Eagles, if that's what you're saying. I don't think they would come to Philadelphia and spring any kind of an upset against Philly, even though they're playing well. I mean, the Eagles have been playing well pretty much all year, except for 1 or 2 games, right? So you don't want to face the Eagles, and you don't want to do it at home. But I give credit to the Lions, man. They're fighting for that playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to get there, but they're making a good run at it.
Yeah, they come to MetLife this week and get Mike Limpin White to try and hold in check their defense. If Goddard had said that to me, I would have said, wait a minute, you're on offense.
Yeah,
you saw their defense week 1, and their defense is as bad as it ever is.
Yeah,
they've
that's
just
true.
got one of the better offenses
surprised.
in the NFL.
I was surprised when he said it. And you're right. I mean, Justin Jefferson probably should have had 300 against him if the officials didn't blow one call. But, yeah, their defense is still struggling. Offensively, boy, they're getting
as good as
Jameson
there
Williams
is in the
back.
NFL.
Yeah,
they're right there with the Eagles as the best offense in the NFL.
And their offensive coordinator's got a lot of Shane Steichen-like ability to take advantage of what he has, Ben Johnson. So I'll shift it there to Shane Steichen.
I was
going to be coaching next year.
Yeah, Lions even traded T.J. Hawkinson, right? I mean, they got
crazy. Imagine if they had T.J. Hawkinson.
They're still clicking. I mean, that's credit to Dan Campbell. But your question is about Steichen and coaching. I think an organization would be very smart to hire Shane Steichen. I think that would be a home run hire.
What a good guy, by the way.
Great.
On the podium, terrible. Off the podium, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's very good, off record with what he has to say. But you just get a feeling he's a smart guy. He is a smart guy. He coached Justin Herbert, right, in L.A. his rookie season, and Herbert had a fantastic year. And I don't think he's good, and he's having a good season, but I don't think he's playing like he was as a rookie when Shane Steichen was with him. And now, look what he's done with this offense. Look, this team comes out and scores touchdowns the first time it gets the ball. They've done it in 7 of their last 8 games.
Yeah.
Again, a feather in Steichen's hat, and Sirianni. They work together, but helping with Jalen Hurts and understanding his skill set and putting something around Hurts as far as what you can do to take advantage of that skill set, that can't go unnoticed either. I just think, everybody talks about Gannon having a head coaching job, and I don't know how many job openings there are going to be. I mean, there's always seems to be at least 5. But
7.
Well, there'll be
about 7.
5 this year.
There's Indies open. The Carolina, who knows? They may keep Steve Wilkes. He's 4-4, has them in the playoff hunt, and I'm not sure that they're going to go outside the organization and bring someone else in. So, I guess you can go through and find some teams, but I think Steichen should get one of those jobs. And I would even put him ahead of Gannon at this point. I mean, I know Gannon does a good job, but Steichen, what he's done with this offense. Remember last year how they got off to those slow starts and, they had like 3 points.
Well, they're since he's taken over as play caller, they are 18-4 in the regular season. 18-5 if you include the playoffs. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right, Ed, here's my last question for you before we let you run. Back to a game other than the Eagles over the weekend. The Cowboys and Jaguars are playing. It's the fourth quarter. Trevor Lawrence throws a perfectly timed touched pass to the back of the end zone, and Evan Ingram makes the catch, which all of a sudden in Jacksonville he can do. When he was with the Giants, he used to drop passes all the time.
Dropped the big one here.
He sure as hell did against the Eagles.
Yeah.
He makes a great catch like he did last week, back of the end zone against coverage from Micah Parsons. And Jackson DeVille, the mascot of the Jaguars, in his Speedo, does a twerking thing toward Micah Parsons. Is that considered disrespectful? And will Micah Parsons hit him if he does that?
Well, I would probably be cringing if I had to watch that. I don't know if I would see the swing if Parsons were to attempt to punch there, because I'd be like, ooh, I can't watch that Speedo action. Is that his name? Jackson Phil? Jackson? Is that
Jackson DeVille?
Jackson
DeVille. That's awful. That's everything about that is awful. The pun is awful.
Oh,
it's terrible. It's
and
terrible.
you know how this ties into the Eagles, right? They got the shot of AJ Brown and somebody else on the bench laughing hysterically during the Giant game this past week.
Yeah.
And Jalen is sitting next to him, and he's just narrow focus. He's not in on the joke. But the joke was that they were showing highlights of Jackson DeVille on the big scoreboard in MetLife Stadium. And the Eagle players who are on the offensive players sitting on the bench while defense out there are watching this idiot twerk with his Speedo on, and they're going nuts, hysterically laughing at it. And Jalen is completely oblivious. He has no idea what his teammates are doing, sitting 2 feet away from him, laughing at the Jackson DeVille antics on the scoreboard at MetLife.
He doesn't want anything to do with any Jackson DeVille rat poison.
Oh,
laser focus.
He is laser focused.
Like Ed Kratz. Who's going to win on Sunday? Any path to victory for the Chicago Bears?
Boy, I just don't see it. I really don't. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to name anybody on that defense outside of Jaquan Brisker, who I really liked. I thought the Eagles should have taken him as a safety. And Kyler Gordon, a good cornerback. But outside of that,
he's a good young quarterback. Eddie Jackson's a good player, but he's hurt.
He's hurt. I don't think he's going to play.
They don't have anything up front. Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn was their best player. You see how that worked out with your –
That's a shame he won't be able to play against his former teammates because he's still on IR. But
by the way, real quick, I pulled it up, and we got to get out of here. So I'm keeping you long. I apologize, Ed, but I'm looking at their defensive line. Armon Watts, Pro Football Focus, 98 out of 125. Angelo Blackson, 118 out of 125. Justin Jones, 116 out of 125. Mike Pennell, 112 out of 125. Dominique Robinson, 111 of 121. Travis Gibson, 113 of 121. Al Quadin Muhammad is the star, 97 of 121. What a disaster.
So you're saying Miles Sanders could go over 2,000 yards this week?
What does he need? Bro's just going to ask, 950 to go over 2,000? Possibility.
I just don't see a path. I mean, I don't know if they'll hang a 50 burger on them, but I think they could threaten the 48-point mark again, to be honest. I just don't see how the Bears can win this game unless it's snowing like crazy. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be really cold.
It's going to be cold.
Yeah,
but cold.
That doesn't
What about Jake Elliott missing a field goal because Brett Kern just got here and is a bad holder? It's not Britton Covey. And what about that?
Well, I talked to Brett in the locker room, and he said it's going to take me about 1 to 2 minutes.
What did he say? 2 minutes?
Yeah, about 1
minutes.
or 2 minutes to figure out the operation. So,
know,
talk about disrespect. I mean,
lot of confidence.
Well,
he's been doing it for 14 years, so
yeah,
it's kind of second nature for him.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned.
Ed Kratz, feel free to work designated growth snaps into your post-game article. That
too many syllables.
Josh Jones,
certainly,
because when you write it, if you're that lazy, you can't type out a couple extra
we're all
letters.
like, we don't want to write an extra word, Jody. Come on,
suck it up, both you two writers.
Yeah, garbage time.
Eddie K, good stuff. Thanks, bud.
All right, thanks for the designated growth.
Oh, you don't need it, my friend. You are already on the Pro Bowl level.
Designated growth reps on
the only thing this trio could use with designated growth would be up top. It's not happening for any of us.
Nope, too late.
It is SI.com/NFL/Eagles. I got to get that in there for Ed Kratz at Kratz E on Twitter.
Thanks, John. Thanks,
Special Ed. Thanks, bud. That's Eddie Kratz here with us on Birds 365. All right, quick timeout. Yeah, we got to put on a bow on the show. We got to make it quick because Sarah Tella's coming up next.
Oh, we're going to get in trouble.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Yes, we are very short on time, but I'll tell you why, Johnny Mac, you shouldn't have to worry about it. We just played the promo of the Eagles post-game show. Mikey Miss and Derek Gunn and Seth Joyner and Devin Caney. They've logged 13 whole post-game shows. We're on show number 427. And somehow they got a fancy dinner. I don't know where they shot that video, but
yeah, I know.
A really nice restaurant and stuff. before you and I got Birds 365 on the road, where'd we go?
Where were we? Ponzio's, right?
Ponzio's Diner. Fries and a Diet Coke is what I had. I don't even remember what you had. So for their 13 shows, they got a fancy dinner. We got fries and a Diet Coke at Ponzio's.
Well, I like Ponzio's.
427 episodes.
I like Ponzio's. So
I like Ponzio's too.
They should advertise with us. Closed circuit to Ponzio's.
We could have gone anywhere on the planet. Joe Kraus was playing anywhere, and we chose Ponzio's. Exactly right.
Well, those are the big stars, Degon, Missinelli, Caney. Who else was in that? I'm on the post-game show. I didn't get an invite.
Yeah,
my invite got lost in the mail.
Let's go to John McMullen, who's not here. Having fine dining.
Seth. I forgot. You can't forget Seth. So they're the big stars.
Exactly. All right. And you and I are both going to be in our basements again tomorrow, but we're going to give them 2 hours of great Eagle content leading up to the Bears and the Birds. Are you in for tomorrow, McMullen?
I'm in.
J-Mac, Jody Mac, back tomorrow in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.